Hey friends, I'm RSKT, and in today's video I thought I'd take you through how I went about making the shrunken head design in Affinity Designer on desktop. I wound up getting this design printed on a little sticker, and I thought it turned out looking pretty cool. This design is also available on my Etsy store, so I sell this as sticker and t-shirt design. But enough chit chat, let me show you how I made this thing. So I forgot to record the first part of this video, but all it involved was drawing a basic sketch. If you've seen my other videos, you should know the process that I use by now. But basically, I'm taking a vector brush and I'm going over all of my rough sketches to make a final line. I like to use thick outlines on the main shapes and smaller outlines for picking out detail. I'm basically just drawing dots and lines all over the place here. I do plan on releasing a short video series in the near future, sort of showing my process and how I actually go about drawing these things. I basically want it to be able to start from the very beginning of drawing primitive shapes, turning them into 3D objects, and then just some little tips and tricks into how to actually get started with drawing. This cartoony way of drawing with really big eyes and lots of scabs and scars and stretched out faces is something that I've just kind of always done. It comes really naturally to me and I just enjoy drawing that way. However, it's not the only style that I'm able to draw in. I do like a fair amount of portraiture. Used to be pretty good at airbrushing as well. Used to airbrush trucks and cars for a living. But when I make these videos when getting started in drawing, I really want it to be about getting the right tool set together so that you're able to draw something in your own style. I'll definitely be showing you how I go about drawing things, but as it gets more advanced, it's probably going to be into drawing realism and form, 3D, like stuff like that. Cool, so now I'm just coming in and I'm painting in a few little extra shadows in the fine line process, just to sort of darken some areas up before I add the color. When I'm adding the color, I like to create a ton of clipping masks, so I basically use the pencil tool to pick out large areas that I'm going to use to act as clipping masks later. It doesn't really matter what color you make them at the beginning because you're just going to be painting over them later anyway. But I kind of just shade them slightly different because I want these things to be separate from one another. So here I'm picking out like the nose and the eyebrows. When I come in and paint textures on them, I don't really want to be going outside of those shapes when I'm picking them apart. And it's just going to make the whole coloring process 10 times easier. Sweet, so I'll jump forward a little bit here, but basically all I'm doing is just using texture brushes and laying down some darker colors and then slowly building them up to lighter colors. If things aren't standing out properly, then I'll just add a color around the edge like this pink here, just to sort of make each element stand out from the next. This whole piece is actually pretty rough. There's not a whole lot to it. It's a bunch of dots, a bunch of lines, and then just a mess of different shading techniques thrown down on top of it. Even down to the stitches in their mouths and their hair ties, they're really just basic shapes. With the hair, I usually just throw down a ton of lines, paint over them with a light wash, and then start picking out darker areas and slowly building it up to lighter areas. Eventually, when you do it enough, you get this high amount of detail that gives a hairy sort of look. Just using some adjustment layers here to play around with the colors. Usually when I'm painting, I'm not actually thinking about color all that much because I can just come back in with adjustment layers and fix them up later anyway. So I'm never too concerned about things being exactly right as I'm painting them. I try to get them mostly right and then just do a ton of color correction later on, changing hue and saturation and using different blend modes on top to get the look that I'm really after. When I'm painting in all of these shadows and highlights as well, I'm not really thinking about a constant light source. For this illustration and a lot of other designs that I like to do, like picking out a constant light source is actually really important in artwork, but I find with these, it's kind of useless. Like the whole point of these illustrations is to have everything jump out at you in a really big cartoony sort of way. So I basically just put shadows around the edges of everything and then highlights on one side of everything. Anytime there's a recessed area, I paint in darker lines, and if it's meant to be sort of popping out a little more, then I'll paint in lighter lines. It's really that simple. So with these highlights, I'm just using a separate layer and using a vector brush just to paint down some white lines. I never actually use pure white or pure black in any of my illustrations. So the black outline is actually a really dark purple and the white highlights is actually a very light yellow. In case you haven't noticed by now too, the whole concept of this illustration was my take on the old Three Monkeys legend. The whole see no evil, speak no evil, and hear no evil. There's probably a better order for doing those things. I don't know which one's correct, but in hindsight, after I finished this illustration and got it all printed, I kind of looked at it and thought maybe I should have put the guy with the sewn up eyes in the middle, just so that the faces with their eyes open were on the outside of the illustration. But I don't know, everybody else I've spoken to doesn't really seem to care or notice about that, so I just left it. I don't really think that there's a whole lot more for me to go over in this video. I've already uploaded 2 other videos that show this method in a lot more detail, and they're a lot more complicated. This drawing is actually really simple and didn't take me that much time at all. But if there's anything that you really want to know about or you're unsure about, please leave me a comment. I don't have a whole lot of subscribers at the moment, so there's a pretty high chance that I'm actually going to respond to you. But yeah. I've got a few more videos to upload like this. I've got a few old time lapses. I used to just upload everything to Instagram and condense it down to a minute, but now I've moved over to YouTube. I'm basically stretching those minute-long videos out into 10 or 30-minute-long videos so that I can really talk a little bit more about the process and make them useful to somebody. Once I've done all of that, I'm going to sit down and plan out a little how to get started with drawing course. Basically get you up to being able to draw things from reference and draw things from your head. I'm a big believer in drawing from your head. I know a lot of people that are great at drawing from reference, but you know, although it takes a lot of hard work, I think there's a lot more fun to be had with coming up with an idea in your head and actually committing it to paper. It's a lot more challenging, but it's a lot more rewarding if you succeed at it. So yeah, that's basically the whole process. Again, if you have any questions, please leave me a comment below. And yeah, I'm a fairly new channel, so if you want to see more like this, or stay tuned for when I finally release all of that how-to content, hit the like and subscribe. Cheers.